Part 69. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 681. Chapter 681 Know the Reason. Yuan practiced for an hour, and actually introduced Qi into his body, reaching the first level of Qi refining stage. She was very surprised that this body's qualifications were better than hers. The little maid is looking outside the house right now. Why hasn't the young lady come out yet? Is she sleeping? The little maid raised her hand to knock on the door, but was afraid of being scolded. The young lady today was so different, she seemed to be a completely different person. If she hadn't followed the young lady the whole time, she would have thought that the young lady had been transferred. Suddenly, a foul smell came from the room, which almost killed the little maid. "Lure, go and fetch water for me, I want to take a bath at this time," Yuan in the room called out. The little maid Lure's face turned green at this time and she quickly ran to the kitchen to fetch water. Yuan washed herself 4 or 5 times before the dirt on her body was clean. She sighed. There were too many toxins in this girl's body. If she didn't come, she would die within a year. The moment Yuan introduced Qi into her body, the girl's memory completely came back to her, letting her know what happened to this girl. This girl's father is biological, and so is her mother. When her mother gave birth to her, her yard was filled with brilliant light. Such a scene suddenly made the people in Yu Mansion excited. Could this child be the reincarnation of some great person? Not long after, even the emperor knew about this and thought that the child must be some kind of auspicious star descending to earth. As soon as Yuan was born, he received the imperial edict. Granted marriage to the 6th prince who was the youngest at that time. The 6th prince was already 4 years old at that time, and he was very unhappy with the little princess who landed in the air. He is only 4 years old and already has a little daughter-in-law. Why don't his brothers have one when they are so old? Yu Tianxiao and his wife were very fond of their third daughter at that time, but unfortunately the good times did not last long. When Yuan was 3 or 4 years old, she knew how to act arrogantly in the house, act domineeringly, and be arrogant. At that time, when she was young, the people in the house didn't think it was a big deal. Maybe she would change when she grows up and becomes sensible. As she grew older, Yuan's arrogant and domineering temperament became more and more vivid. Yu Tianxiao and his wife were even more angry to death. Yu Tianxiao once doubted his life. Although he loved this daughter a little more than other children, she still didn't have such a temper. What exactly went wrong? In fact, what they don't know is that Yuan has been poisoned with a kind of carnival poison since she was a child. This kind of poison is colorless and odorless, and even the imperial doctors at the Tai hospital cannot detect it. Therefore, no matter who Yu Tianxiao looks for over the years, they can't find out what happened to her. This kind of poison can make a person's brain extremely excited, especially when she encounters people and things she doesn't like or likes, it will infinitely amplify that feeling. So, whenever Yuan likes something but can't get it, she will use means to get it. This is what ordinary people see as tyranny. If she doesn't like someone, she will hate it with all her strength and will make rude remarks. This is what everyone sees as arrogance. All of this made Yu Tianxiao and his wife extremely disappointed, and they became increasingly unhappy with their daughter. Since she is the 6th imperial concubine granted by the emperor, Yu Tianxiao and his wife can just keep her and marry her when she is 16 anyway. This Yuan's virtue has long been spread to the emperor's ears, and he has seen it in person. He wants to cancel the engagement. How can such a person marry into the royal family? But Qin Tianjian said that this Yuan was a goddess from heaven. If she married her into the royal family, she would definitely bring endless glory to the royal family in the future and the engagement could not be cancelled. The emperor had no choice but to leave it at that. As for Yuan, who was older, she was even more infatuated with the 6th prince to the point of obsession. The 6th prince avoided her like a snake and a scorpion. He was so disgusted that he wanted to kill her all the time. He asked Yuan to bring back the flowers outside the yard. He brought some flowers a day, and they became like the flowers outside, where the yard was full of life-threatening flowers. Little maid Luer is fine, but she will not let her enter the yard except when she is asked to serve. However, Luer has been here for a long time and his brain has been affected to some extent, so it's not a big problem. Yuan was different. She had already been exposed to the carnival, and she had been exposed to these toxins, and her brain had already been eroded to the point of being damaged. Yuan sighed, poor girl. That carnival is not an ordinary poison, and even officials like Yu Fu can't get it. It's not necessarily true for the royal family, but it's definitely not something that little brat like the sixth prince can get. He was only 5 or 6 years old at that time. The battle for the crown prince in the royal family has been fierce since ancient times. It goes without saying that the person who poisoned her was the auspicious daughter-in-law who did not want the sixth prince to have a vision from heaven. This is not a vision from the sky, but the star power revealed by Yuan's star body when she was born. Yuan was wondering if it was like this when Feng gave birth to Yuan. The whole story was clear, and Yuan didn't know what she was going to do here or when she could go back. She could only take one step at a time. The first thing to do is to explain to Yu Tianxiao that she was poisoned by the carnival and was not like this because of her nature. Although Yu Tianxiao is a power-hungry person, he is still a responsible person for his family, his wife, and children. In a society where power is paramount, Yu Tianxiao's behavior is not worth mentioning. No official in the government wants to climb up. Yuan wouldn't blame him if she wasn't the original owner, but now it's that girl's body. She knows everything, so she should make it clear to her parents. Of course, given her personality, she would speak directly and not mince words, let alone hold back. That is not her personality. As for what Yu Tianxiao and his wife think and do, she can't control it, but she can ease it. That girl is so capable that it is impossible to completely change the relationship. Not only the people in the mansion know what she looks like, but also everyone in the capital knows what she is like. She is a negative example for other people's goddaughters. Yuan finished washing and had no other colors to wear, so she had to grit her teeth and wear the pink dress. It feels awkward no matter how you look at it. Greener. Miss, my servant is here. Luer hurriedly came in. Go and buy me some plain-colored dresses, and ask someone to replace all the pink things in the house, including the clothes. Give them all away. Huh, Luer was confused again. Ah, what, ask someone to do it, hurry up, get it done before dark. Yes, slave, let's go now. Luer ran out in a panic and asked someone to help. Yuan then left the yard and walked towards Yu Tianxiao's study by following the path in his memory. Meet many maids and servants along the way, all of them avoided her for fear of getting into trouble again. Yuan pretended not to see him and went directly to the door of the study. Third, Miss Third, are you looking for the master? The gatekeeper asked tremblingly. Well, if you want to help with the communication, just say that I have something very important to report. Yuan couldn't pronounce the word father. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 682. Chapter 682. Tell Yu Tianxiao. The boy looked at her for a few times, then turned around to report. He was suspicious. When did the third lady become so polite and need to be communicated? In the past, she could just kick in the door. It's really strange. The sun rises in the west today? When the boy entered, Yu Tianxiao was sulking. Hearing that it was Yuan who wanted to meet, he confirmed again and again, are you talking about the third lady? Yes, sir, it is indeed the third young lady. The servant also finds it strange. Let her come in, Yu Tianxiao said with a headache, refusing to let her see her. She would kick in the door later. Yes, sir. The boy ran out of the door and told Yuan to let her in. Yuan nodded towards her and then entered the study. In the study room, Yu Tianxiao looked at Yuan, who had a gentle aura. His eyes were fixed on her, and the words he wanted to scold her were immediately stuck in his throat. "What's the matter?" Yu Tianxiao still didn't look good. Yuan gave a simple salute. She stood in front of Yu Tianxiao and said, "My daughter is here to tell you something." "Explain." Yuan said directly, "What my daughter has done in these years is because she was poisoned by a carnival poison, and the poison mixed with the fragrance of flowers outside the yard." "What did you say?" Yu Tianxiao couldn't believe his ears. He stood up quickly, walked to Yuan, and looked at Yuan with sharp eyes. Yuan nodded. "My daughter was given this kind of medicine when she was very young." How could it be possible?" Yu Tianxiao murmured, and after a moment, he looked at Yuan again. "How do you know?" Yuan smiled. "Don't you remember the vision when I was born?" "What does that have to do with anything?" "It's very relevant when my daughter's life is threatened. It will activate the function of automatically protecting her, removing toxins from her body, and there is also a set of exercises stored in my daughter's head." Yuan said half-truthfully. As for the skills, she also told them. She entered this body so that it could be cultivated, although she didn't understand why there was a star body here. Then, the little girl will have to leave this Yufu sooner or later. Rather than leaving them inexplicably when the time comes, let them prepare in advance. Yu Tianxiao looked deeply at Yuan, his eyes full of inquiry and disbelief. After a long time, he asked, "Then it won't be the same as before?" Yuan shook her head. "No." Yu Tianxiao saw her enigmatic look, no longer as arrogant and domineering as before, and felt a little more confident. "Then what is the skill?" "This cannot be said. It is indeed impossible to say. This is a world without monks, and I am afraid of scaring him if I say it." "Okay, Dad is aware of this matter. Do you have anything else to do?" Yu Tianxiao said in a rare gentle tone. "Yes, my daughter will go out for a trip tomorrow, and the house is not suitable for cultivation." "Then, your marriage to the sixth prince." "Just quit. The little girl will be 16 next year. When she reaches the age of marriage, she will not marry anyone else. The body belongs to the little girl, but the soul belongs to her, and she doesn't want to get entangled with other men besides Mujukan. This is hard to estimate. The vision you had when you were born is destined to not escape the royal family. Previously, this daughter acted without rules, and the emperor would not retreat, and he was eager to retreat. Now that she has returned to normal, it is even more impossible. Then let the daughter solve the problem by herself in the future. My daughter has resigned. I would like to ask you to tell the mother." Yuan lightly lifted her lower body and left the study. When she returned to the yard, the room had been changed according to her wishes. Any other color looks more comfortable than pink. She dismissed the maid and mother-in-law, crossed herself on the bed and started practicing again. It wasn't until night fell and Luer was about to fall asleep waiting outside that Yuan ended her practice. She opened her eyes. This was the second level of Qi training again, and it was really ridiculously fast. After dinner, she packed a few clothes herself and packed some banknotes with the little girl before going to bed. The next day, she took the package and went out, without Luer either. Yuan went straight to the market in the city, bought a dagger, some seasonings and some simple cooking utensils, packed them up, hired a carriage and headed out of the city. Hundreds of miles away from the capital, there is the endless Tianxin Mountains. Yuan plans to go into the mountain to practice. "Girl, are you going to Tianxin Mountain?" the coachman asked. "Yes, old man." "Girl, please be careful. Recently I heard that there are wild beasts in the mountains. Many people who don't believe it can't get out after entering," the coachman reminded kindly. "Thank you, old man. I will be careful and go into the mountains to find some medicinal materials. If it is dangerous, I will not go in." "Oh, it's better that the girl doesn't go in if she wants to go in, Bring something for self-defense. The driver said as he drove the car. It was getting dark in the afternoon and he was only halfway through the journey. Yuan disliked the carriage being too slow, so after giving the driver some money, she ran up the mountain carrying her baggage. When it was dark, she used the magic of lightness and hurried on. It was much faster, and she arrived in an hour. Yuan went straight up the mountain. She knew that the so-called beast was probably a monster. It's a pity that she can't use the space, otherwise she wouldn't be able to run into the mountains. When she arrived at the mountain, Yuan deeply inhaled the spiritual energy on the mountain. It was indeed much richer. She immediately climbed up a big tree, sat cross-legged on the tree and started practicing Qigong. With no worries overnight, Yuan successfully advanced to the 4th level of Qi training. She just jumped off the tree and went straight into the mountains. It's you. Sure enough, an hour later, Yuan saw a large white wolf. Judging from the aura fluctuations on its body, it looked like a 1st and 3rd level monster. Yuan didn't wait for Bai Lang to react. She stood up from the stars under her feet and sat on Bai Lang's back in the blink of an eye. She hit Bai Lang hard with her fist. The white wolf was in pain and jumped up and down violently. Don't move, Yuan scolded angrily. After hearing this, the white wolf did not dare to move. His body was twitching continuously, indicating that he was in great pain. Take me to your hometown. The white wolf can become a monster. It is estimated that its lair is either on the spiritual vein, or there is a spiritual creature there. Both of these are useful to Yuan. The white wolf whined twice, and due to Yuan's lust, he had no choice but to lead her obediently into the depths of the forest. An hour later, Yuan stopped in an underground cave. As expected, there is plenty of spiritual energy here, and there are spiritual grasses growing on the stone walls, some of which have been gnawed by white wolves. After Yuan placed the things, he told the white wolf, "Go outside and catch a few hares for me, and then guard them at the entrance of the cave. Let me know if there is any danger." White wolf nodded. Not long after, the white wolf came back and caught 2 hares. Yuan cleaned up the hares, roasted them all, and threw one to the white wolf. The white wolf smelled the fragrance and ran away as soon as he got into trouble, as if he was afraid that Yuan would let him go. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 683. Chapter 683, Pill Formation. There is no time in the mountains. Yuan stayed here for half a year, and her cultivation reached the golden elixir stage incredibly. And she had just finished surviving the catastrophe. Such continuous thunder made the people around start talking and looking towards the Tianxing Mountains. Yuan, who was sitting on the ground, still had her eyes closed at this time. She was looking at the soul of the little girl in her original form. The little girl looked at Yuan with burning eyes. But Yuan's expression was indifferent. Breaking through the golden elixir, the little girl's spirit woke up. After a long while, the little girl said, "Sister, thank you." "Thank me for what?" The little girl tilted her head and said gratefully, "Sister, I have the memory of these 6 months. It was your arrival that saved me and allowed me to practice." Yuan looked at such a delicate little girl. She didn't look arrogant or domineering at all, but she was very cute. The little girl herself is not ugly. Well, as long as you understand what will happen in the future, Yuan knew that she was probably going to leave. Her mission was to teach the little girl to practice. It's just that her star judgment seemed to be a bit of a disadvantage for the little girl, and she didn't benefit at all. "Little girl, sister, I want to become your teacher. Can you take me with you?" The little girl said it very seriously, and it didn't look like she was joking at all. Are you willing to stay here? The little girl curled her lips and said, have you seen the reluctance? I will be normal from now on. People who don't like me still don't like me, and people who hate me still hate me. You are quite smart, I might as well accept you as my disciple. Yuan felt less pain after passing Xing Chenju to his apprentice. When the little girl heard this, she immediately kowtowed to Yuan in her mind, disciple, hey, I can't call you Yuan anymore, let's call you Yujing. Disciple Yujing pays homage to the master. Speaking, he bowed 3 times and kowtowed 9 times. Yuan nodded. Jing was her nickname. It was acceptable to call her Yujing, so it didn't conflict with her name. This little girl is actually very smart. After Yujing finished her salute, she waved her hand to lift her up. Yuan couldn't help but want to laugh because the first time she accepted a disciple was like this. It was a pity that she couldn't come up with a meeting gift now, so she would make up for it later. Now that her body has returned to Yujing, Yuan can only stay in her sea of consciousness. She hasn't left yet, and she doesn't know what else is left unfinished, so she can only do this for now. Yujing opened her eyes and couldn't restrain her inner excitement. It turned out that there really are gods in the world, her master is her, and so will she in the future. Yujing stood up, pinched her hands, and her body was clean. She made another decision, and then she stopped after countless decisions. Really, it's amazing. Yujing was delighted. Yuan looked at that childish behavior and the corners of her mouth twitched. At this time, somewhere in the god realm, the person before looked at Yujing's childish scene, and the corners of his mouth twitched. The goddess in this world is a crazy woman. However, after the goddess awakens and learns the star art, it's not a big deal even if she is a crazy girl. Haha, if those old men from the Tiandao sect knew that their most precious treasure, Starju, was cultivated by the goddess of Dongsha realm, they would probably vomit 3 liters of blood. Snort. I still want to be the overlord of the universe, just dream about it. The man smiled triumphantly. He flicked his finger towards where Yujing was standing, and a black thing fell behind Yujing. It was so quiet that Yujing didn't notice it at all. It was Yuan who saw it. When she saw the thing appearing out of thin air, she took a closer look and was pleasantly surprised. Hold, what's behind you? What is it? Yujing turned around and saw a scabbard that looked like gold but not gold. She picked it up and saw that there was faint star power on it. Master, what is this? Master's former artifact, the scabbard of the star sword, Yuanqi said. Yujing was surprised. Where did the master come from? He was so awesome and had a magical weapon. Just when Yujing was surprised, the scabbard in her hand disappeared. Of course it was Yuan who took it away. Yuan looked at the scabbard and wondered why it appeared out of thin air. Could it be that, as she thought, someone was really controlling all of this, and the purpose was her star judgment, and this scabbard was the reward? Yuan couldn't figure out why this person would do this. If she couldn't figure it out, she stopped thinking about it. She was used to having soldiers come to cover up the water and the earth. Now it was time to leave Tianxing Mountain to solve the little girl's problem, so she said, let's go down the mountain. Yujing nodded. The place where she stood was struck by lightning and a deep pit was formed. She used her spiritual power and jumped forward. Leaping to the ground, she flew and jumped wildly in the forest for a while. You can't fly in the air at the golden elixir stage, and you need the help of magical or spiritual weapons to fly. Even so, Yujing likes it very much. It's fun to fly as high as you can. This is something she has never seen in the past 15 years, and she is eager to experience the freshness that cultivation brings to her. Yuan looked at it and just smiled. Didn't she feel the same way when she became a monk? Over time, the novelty no longer exists. You can practice your spells while walking. When Yujing was done playing, Yuan said. Yujing's eyes lit up. Yes, She had forgotten that there were spells. So what about fireball spells, wind blade spells? Those little spells made her overjoyed. Yujing was finally tired of playing, so she returned to the cave, consolidated her cultivation, and packed her things before leaving the mountain. In fact, I didn't have much, just a few pieces of clothing, and I didn't even take any other items like pots and pans. The white wolf sent Yujing out of the mountain and watched her go down the mountain reluctantly. Don't eat people, otherwise I'll beat you up and you'll find teeth all over the floor. Yujing walked far away, and a voice came into the ears of the white wolf. The white wolf trembled, looked at her sadly, turned around and disappeared into the forest. Yujing went into the city and went to a clothing store to buy a new set of clothes and put them on. In half a year, her stature has also grown a lot, especially her appearance has changed the most. She was not ugly originally, she had a beautiful face, and with the addition of cultivating immortality, her temperament suddenly improved to countless levels, and her appearance was even more beautiful. People walking on the street attracted countless people to stop and watch. Why does that person look so familiar? Someone looked at Yujing and asked thoughtfully. Yeah, but, is it her? Another person shook his head. These two people are from the sixth prince's mansion, and they are very familiar with Yujing from the past. Yujing couldn't sleep well if he didn't go to see the sixth prince for a day, so he went there every day and even thunder couldn't hit him. A number of subordinates of the sixth prince's mansion, everyone is familiar with the future of the six princes. When I saw Yujing today, it seemed that she was her but not her. Could this woman with stunning appearance and elegant temperament be Yujing? Have you really seen a ghost? But I thought that Yujing had not been out to be a demon for some time, and I didn't know where she had gone. What if she came back? No, you have to go back and tell the sixth prince. The two of them looked at each other and hurried back to the sixth prince's mansion. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 684. Chapter 684 ended. Yujing doesn't care about other people's opinions. She is no longer the same person as she was before, and worldly opinions cannot attract her attention at all. Arrived at Yu Mansion, Yujing stepped in directly. When the servants saw such an incredibly beautiful woman entering the Yu Mansion in such a grand manner, all the servants were so shocked that they forgot to scold her. After Yujing's consciousness swept away, she walked straight towards Yu Tianxiao's study. In the study, Yu Tianxiao sat on a chair with a sad face, his hands pressed between his eyebrows. Today in the court, the emperor had asked him about the marriage between Yujing and the sixth prince. He had tried hard before, but the emperor refused to cancel the engagement. At this moment he was so worried that he was about to die. Since no one has come back for the wedding, there is no way to get married. At the beginning, he didn't say where the dead girl went. Even if he wanted to look for her, he didn't know where to look. Before, he was interested in letting his second daughter marry in place of the girl, but he couldn't bear the emperor's troubles and he couldn't bear the crime of deceiving the emperor. Why? Squeak. The door opened at this time, and Yu Tianxiao was about to scold him when he looked up and saw Yujing. No, this is not Yujing. How can Yujing be so beautiful and have such an unearthly temperament? Yu Tianxiao was stunned, but when he saw Yujing walking in, he couldn't figure out who it was if it wasn't Yujing. Yu Tianxiao was surprised and happy. Yes, it's Wan'er. Yu Tianxiao was so happy that he couldn't hold his tongue straight. Yujing sat down and nodded to him, call me Yujing from now on. She did not dare to have the same name as her master. Okay, Jinger came back just in time. Dad has something to tell you. Yu Tianxiao didn't care whether she was Yuan or Yujing. Anyway, she was back, so he didn't have to worry. Is it my marriage? You don't have to interfere in this matter. I will handle it myself. That. You want your second sister to marry the sixth prince. Don't worry, I will make it happen for you, Yu Jing interrupted Yu Tianxiao. This father is still the same father, and he will not change his attitude towards her just because she has changed. I don't like her the same, and I'm equally biased. Of course, if she was normal, maybe he wouldn't be like this. It can only be said that she has no connection with her parents and is destined to have such an experience. However, she can leave with peace of mind. Jing I'm sorry for you. Dad really can't help it? You don't know that although Dad is the chief minister of the country, our Yu family's foundation is not deep. Only if you sisters marry into the royal family can the Yu family survive for a long time. Yu Tianxiao rarely felt a little guilty. Yu Jing waved her hands. Stop talking about that. How long can a family that relies on women survive? Why not educate your children and grandchildren well and protect the Yu family with your true skills? Yu Jing doesn't know how to say this, and it's useless if he does. Few of the children and grandchildren of the Yu family are promising. She used to be arrogant and domineering, following the sixth prince every day. Her brothers and sisters were no better, they were all playboys. It is indeed difficult to get them to correct their evil ways and establish Yafu. This may be the reason why her father wanted to send his daughter to marry into the royal family. Yu Tianxiao didn't know what Yu Jing's words meant, and he couldn't say anything else. He was afraid of offending his daughter, so he just called off the engagement and ignored his second daughter's affairs. Yu Jing glanced at him. This coward didn't even know how such a person could become the chief assistant. The emperor's eyes are definitely blind. Yu Jing came out of Yu Tianxiao's study and went to her mother's yard. My mother was instructing her servants to do something. When she saw her coming, she still looked as calm as before. There was no surprise at all. She didn't even say hello, as if she didn't exist. Yu Jing was very disappointed. She sighed and bowed deeply to her. This gift fulfilled her gift of giving birth. At the moment she left, a burst of spiritual power shot into her body, which could ensure her growth. May you live 100 years without any disease or disaster. After returning to the yard where she used to live, Luer had already disappeared and the house was covered with dust. Yu Jing did not enter the house, but took a look outside, closed the door and left the Yu mansion towards the palace. After the eunuch's announcement, Yu Jing quickly saw the emperor. Surprisingly, the sixth prince was also there. The 20-year-old sixth prince looks like a jade tree in the wind, and is suave. Yu Jing's heart was still a little palpitating when she saw him. As a monk, Yu Jing could not kneel down to the emperor, so she only lightly blessed her body and said, "Your Majesty, I am here today to terminate my engagement with the sixth prince." Yu Jing is straightforward. The sixth prince came here with the same intention as her. He heard a report from his servants that he saw her on the street. Thinking of the return of Yu Jing, who had disappeared for only half a year, and of her headache-inducing obsession, the sixth prince hurriedly came to beg his father to terminate the engagement. He has been ridiculed for 12 years of his 16-year engagement, and today he will be terminated no matter what. But no matter what he begged, the emperor just refused. At this time, this woman came. He thought that Yu Jing got the news and came to the palace to stop it, but he didn't expect that he came to break off the engagement. The sixth prince was astonished. The emperor frowned and asked, "Didn't third miss like Xiao Lu very much before? Why did she want to break off the engagement?" Having not seen each other for half a year, Yu Jing's appearance is very outstanding, but his temper is still not good. When he sees him, the emperor can't kneel down and bow to him, so he opens his mouth to break off the engagement. His royal marriage is so easy to explain. Yu Jing glanced at the emperor and sent a message to him, "Your Majesty, please ask the sixth prince to step aside first and let the imperial advisor come. The national preceptor is a foundation-building monk, and only he can tell clearly. It was the national preceptor who did it back then, and he should be the one to solve today's matter." The emperor was startled when he heard the message. He immediately asked the sixth prince to retreat and quickly summoned the imperial advisor. Soon the imperial preceptor arrived. The moment he saw Yujing, he hurriedly stepped forward and said, "I've seen you, senior." Yujing said coldly, "Let the emperor dissolve my engagement with the sixth prince and give her to my second sister." "Yes, yes, junior, do as you please," the imperial master agreed repeatedly, with the corners of his mouth rising. The emperor looked at it for a while. The secular world is not for monks, so it's better to leave. When Yujing left, he also reminded the imperial master. Yujing walked out of the palace, took a deep breath, and walked out of the city. In the palace, after listening to what the imperial master said, the emperor fell down on the dragon chair, scolded the sixth prince, and gave him the marriage of the second lady. The sixth prince didn't understand what a monk was, but he understood that Yuan was now what mortals call a fairy. He didn't react at all, and left the palace in silence, heading towards Yu Mansion. He learned that Yujing had not returned home at all. The sixth prince returned to the sixth prince's mansion in despair, and happened to have the imperial master waiting for him at the door. "Sixth prince regrets it?" The sixth prince nodded. The moment he officially terminated his engagement with Yujing, he felt inexplicably regretful. The imperial master shook his head. "If I had known today, why would I have done it at the beginning? I said at the beginning that she was a fairy from heaven who came down to earth, and no one would cherish her." After the imperial master finished speaking, he shook his head and left the capital. The moment he left, the person disappeared strangely. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 685. Chapter 685 Soul Refining. When Yujing left the city, her eyes suddenly blurred and she fainted. Just like the imperial master, she disappeared in a strange way. When Yuan regained consciousness, she was still standing on the steps, still holding the scabbard in her hand, while Yujing fainted at her feet. She immediately put Yujing and the scabbard into the space, then looked around and saw that no one noticed her, seeming to turn a blind eye to her behavior. Yuan was sitting cross-legged on the stairs, thinking about what had just happened. What she experienced was not an illusion, but a real soul being sent to other worlds and bringing back the scabbard and Yujing. Before, she thought that even if it was the real world, Yujing would not be able to bring her back, but in the end he actually brought her back. Yuan actually doesn't know what the use of the star body is to the body, and she is also very curious. When Ming Ao and Tianya were eager to get her astral body, she wanted to ask at that moment. It is definitely not as simple as Tianya said. The in charge must be a star. That's bullshit, isn't her father already a god? So this astral body must have secrets that she doesn't know about. Furthermore, she also helped the Dongsha realm to find the star body and was able to practice the star art. Before the star art, no one except her could practice it. Moreover, she couldn't even write it down silently. So the people in Dongsha realm must also know this, so they made this Liangxin mountain to wait for her? This is a bit unreasonable. How could that person know in advance that she would come to Dongsha realm? And bring the astral body back, just to make sure she won't take it with you? What's even more funny is that she gave up star judgment and got a scabbard instead. Still so sure that the scabbard was hers, Yuan estimated that the memory in the god realm must not be simple. Yuan looked at Liangxin mountain. This mountain is really for refining hearts and ghosts. 80% of it is a cover-up created by people from the god realm here, doing things specifically for her. Well, this thing is getting weirder and weirder. After what happened here, I must go to the god realm to see who did it. She also has another worry, that is, she is afraid that someone has the same idea as Tianya and wants to seize the star body. She, Yuan, would not do a loss-making business. If she really had that intention, she would immediately take Yujing back to Baisha realm. Exhaling a breath, Yuan stood up and continued to crawl forward. When she climbed 5 steps, another blur of flowers appeared before her eyes, and she appeared in a golden color. Before she could see where this place was, she suddenly saw a golden light coming towards her. It was powerful and had a golden fairy aura. Yuan curled up her lips. It was a test of the metal element. The stars under her feet take a step forward. Huh? Why can't I leave? Yuan then realized that she was wrong. Now it's too late for a duel, and I can only watch helplessly being hit. She was beaten to death beautifully. When she opened her eyes, she was still standing on the steps, but her body seemed to be falling apart. When her consciousness wanted to see how injured she was, she didn't want to use it. The pain caused her to almost faint. It turns out that being injured there is really an injury to the soul. What kind of weird test is this? How many people can pass it? How long will it take for the injured soul to recover? She is the only one who has the elixir to heal the soul. Yuan sat down, resisting the pain of her consciousness, and took out a bottle of soul pill from the space. After swallowing one, she began to exercise her power to heal her injuries. 2 hours later, Yuan opened her eyes and regained her consciousness. It seems that the spirit has increased a little bit. Is that a test of gold magic and divine soul? Can the soul be able to withstand beatings? The more resistant it is, the better the benefits will be? Then this is a bit interesting. Yuan got up and took a step up. When she climbed up the stairs, she returned to the place full of golden immortal power, and another golden immortal power attacked her. This time Yuan was prepared, and when she raised her hand, a burst of fire fairy power greeted her. Boom! The golden immortal power passed through the fire immortal power and hit her directly. She was beaten to death again. No, it should be said that she was beaten back again. Yuan opened her eyes, and the situation was the same as before. She swallowed another soul pill, and after her soul recovered, this time her soul seemed to be slightly solidified. Yuan felt happy. It was better to solidify the soul than to grow. The more solid the soul, the better, just like the stronger the body. After Yuan knew that there was such a benefit, she immediately took another step up. After going up, the scene was like that again. After that, Yuan was beaten continuously, and her soul became more and more solid. From not being able to withstand a single blow to being able to withstand 1 or 2 blows, finally her soul was able to compete with the golden immortal power. It was only then that Yuan saw clearly that this was a closed metal space, and the one attacking her was a metal puppet. The puppet's 360-degree seamless attack meant that she would get beaten even if she ducked anywhere. No wonder. Yuan raised her fist to fight back, punching her one after another until her magical power was exhausted. I didn't faint this time, and my injuries weren't serious. But Yuan discovered that her soul, which was originally a foot tall, was now less than half of its original size, but much more solid. The strange thing is that at the heart of Shenhun, Yuan felt as if there was a heart there, beating one after another with her heart. And the soul can breathe inside, as if it has a respiratory system. This is incredible. This phenomenon is like the soul trying to cultivate into a physical entity. Yuan was very excited. If the soul could be cultivated into a physical body, she would have one more life than others. Even if the body was completely destroyed, the soul would not have to cultivate a physical body, and she could live and practice as before. Because the soul is a body of flesh and blood, not an energy group. After discovering this, Yuan no longer complained about the person who set up this spiritual path, nor did she complain about the expensive fairy stone. That's all, it was worth it. After Yuan recovered her spirit, she was thinking that she would also let Liang Bailey take a walk after she went out. This path of mental training is really beneficial to monks. Next, Yuan continued to fight the puppets in the metal space, but basically she was getting beaten. The more she felt that she could withstand the beating, the more solid her soul was, and the more obvious the breathing system of her soul was. So Yuan had a guess. The Gold Master's respiratory system, this level is to solidify the soul and then grow a respiratory system. She believes that later on, the internal organs, meridians, bones, etc. will be similar to here and can all grow. As for how long it grows, it depends on the individual's strength. Maybe some people will have nothing, some people will be able to develop rudiments, and some people may be fully formed. Of course, it is a big deal to be able to grow the prototype of a dimension. For the soul to cultivate a physical entity, not only must there be corresponding techniques, but it must also be in a place with abundant soul power, and it cannot be cultivated overnight. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 686. Chapter 686 Breakthrough in Cultivation. In fact, Yuan meets the conditions now, but her star soul art is almost reaching the level, and she has not grown arms or legs. Therefore, this is a rare place for cultivation. She must seize the opportunity so that the soul can cultivate the internal organs and other prototypes. Next, Yuan has been beaten in the gold space. Until she really saw the discernible respiratory system on her soul. Of course, the soul, which was originally less than half a foot tall, is now only 3 feet tall. Severely shrunk, but quite solid. When there was no further progress at this level, Yuan K continued to climb up. At this moment, she saw Mujukin standing on the steps with his eyes closed in the crowd. The expression on his face alternated between pain and relief. Yuan frowned. Was he in an illusion? She simply stopped and stood behind him, guarding him. If someone who is short-sighted pushes him from behind at this time, the consequences will be disastrous. I think there are some defenses on the road to refining the heart, but when I meet Mujukin, there is no harm in protecting him. Mujukin has been here for 10 days, and no one knows what he has been through. When he woke up, he saw Yuan standing behind him. He took a step back and hugged her. What's wrong with you? Did you see something? Yuan raised her head and asked him. Mujukin shook his head. I just saw some bad things in the illusion, but that doesn't matter, it won't affect us. Seriously, Yuan didn't believe it. Really, my husband would still lie to you. Mujukin rubbed her head and thought for a while, telling Wanner to save her from thinking about it and thinking that it was inconvenient for her to know, so he said again, I saw my parents in the fantasy world. They always blamed me, so you almost didn't wake up from the illusion. Yuan felt cold in her heart. If he couldn't wake up from the illusion, it would be troublesome. With such a body left here, it is impossible to die. After all, they all have to leave their souls behind, but it will take a long time to rebuild their souls. Mujukin nodded. It won't happen again, don't worry. Yuan was silent for a moment. This may be the knot that has always existed in Mujukin's heart. At that time, Uncle Mu and Mrsu died, as well as Brother Mu's family, but there were no descendants left, and Mujukin was not around at that time. It became a lifelong regret for Mujukin that he was not able to meet her before his death. She hoped that Mujukin could untie the knot just now. This knot has never been solved. When he goes through the tribulation of ascension, it may become his biggest inner demon. Yuan thought of the formation for refining the soul, and she said, by the way, there are people refining the soul over there. Have you ever experienced it? No. Yuan pointed to a place and said, then you go over there and start by going down 100 stairs. Is this okay? Are there any people who are trying to refine their minds and make a U-turn? Yuan shook his head. I don't know, I don't care if it's okay, just go and try it. Anyway, there's no rule not to go back, and we're not in a hurry. That is so important to the soul. If Mujukin does not survive the catastrophe, his soul may be protected and does not need to be repaired. Mujukin smiled. He was afraid that Wanner had never done this in the way of refining the mind since ancient times. He said, "The further you go, the stricter your patience with the monks. Wanner, be careful." Yuan nodded, and then she sent a message to Mujukin, telling him everything in the golden immortal power space. Mujukin looked surprised and hurried down. Without being affected by gravity, Mujukin quickly reached the place Yuan mentioned. At this time, the monks who were climbing up all looked at him in surprise, thinking that he had given up on the path of spiritual training. Only the immortals who are guarding the path of refining the mind have twitching corners of their mouths, and there are still people doing this. It is true that there are countless formations arranged on the road to refining the heart, and the formations are different. They are all triggered wherever the monks go. You can really go back and do something else. This way of refining the mind has been here for who knows how many years, and no one has ever done it. Mujukin is the first one. The guarding immortal had to suffer the fate of being mute, and now he may not be able to calm down in his mental training. Now that you know it, you can go back and take other routes, and the sect will lose money. To support the operation of the formation, immortal stones are also needed. The guarding immortals only hope that those immortals on the road to refining their hearts are stupid and will not think of the immortals' intentions. Fortunately, he saw that Yuan was using the voice transmission method and did not say it directly. Even if someone knows about it, it won't spread immediately. This matter must be reported back to the sect and let the sect reset it. Yuan didn't know these things. She saw that Mujukin had entered the space after returning. She didn't want to go to Mujukin's previous formation to practice her mind. She had better go back to the previous line and continue her spiritual cultivation. Sure enough, the internal organs, bones, meridians. Anyway, after one trip, her spirit was like that of a 5 to 6 month old baby. In the future, as long as her soul reaches a higher level in cultivation, her soul will cultivate into a complete body. When she finished walking this section, she was teleported to the other end of the heart refining road. As soon as the immortals here were sent down, they all flew away. Only Yuan stayed there waiting for Mujukin. But she didn't stay long, and the immortal power in her body suddenly exploded. This was to break through her cultivation level. Yuan had no choice but to leave a message for Mujukin and then flew away quickly. Find a place, arrange it, and then sit in the formation and start to break through the cultivation level. There are remnants of the tribulations everywhere in this area. I think most of them came here to break through after coming from the heart refining road. Within less than half a stick of incense, the first thunder struck. Yuan immediately used the powerful power of thunder and lightning to train her body. She did not waste any training opportunities at all. She practices chi training, body training, and soul training. Compared with other monks who only practice chi training, she has 2 more items and uses twice as much time and resources as others. So, once there is something suitable for her to practice, she will not let go of the opportunity. Now that her soul has reached the 9th level of great perfection, Galaxy Ju is still early, it is still on the 8th level, and the 9th level has not yet been reached. Yuan originally planned to advance to the 9th level of Galaxy Ju when she was promoted to Immortal Master. When the lightning strike was over, as expected, Yuan's body refining was promoted to the 9th level. At this moment, her consciousness stirred, and she flashed into the space to consolidate her cultivation. It took a year to consolidate her cultivation. After that, she came out of the space again and took out the sound transmission jade to look at it. It turned out that Mujukin had also gone to overcome the tribulation. Don't worry about him, he will come to her after his tribulation. Yuan had no choice but to enter the space, looked at Yujing, and guided her in her cultivation. After finishing, Yujing asked curiously, "Master, What state are you in now? What, you think you are slow in cultivation? End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 687. Chapter 687 The Law of the Stars. No, just ask Yu Jing is not a novice in cultivation. There are many jade slips in Yuan's treasure pavilion. These days, she has been reading those jade slips in it eagerly. She has gained a great understanding of the world of immortality and cultivation. She is no longer the nymphomaniac who only bothered the sixth prince every day. Oh, that's good. Remember that cultivation requires gradual steps. Remember not to damage the foundation by being greedy for speed. Yu Jing nodded, thank you, master. I understand that I am consolidating my cultivation these days and am not in a hurry to advance. She was promoted to the golden core stage half a year ago. After reading so many jade slips, she realized that this was not a good thing at all. Some people took more than 100 years to break through the golden elixir, and there are many people who took decades to break through. She took half a year, which is a bad thing. So she simply did not rush to practice, but instead consolidated her cultivation. Now she feels that her cultivation is very solid and does not feel vain. Yuan nodded, thinking that this apprentice is not stupid. After the master and apprentice had some words, Yuan found the two treasures and placed them at the foot of Liangxin Mountain. At the same time, she also told them what she knew on the road to Liangxin. Yu Jing sat under the enlightenment tea. What did she just see? She saw two handsome men who looked exactly the same. They have an outstanding temperament and are 100 times more handsome than the sixth prince. These are the real handsome men, beautiful men. They also call the master mother. Sky. Yu Jing smacked her lips, her mouth watering. After Yuan gave away the two treasures, she saw Yu Jing being a nymphomaniac and hit her with a burst of magical power. Wouldn't this guy fall in love with her son? She was eager for her son to find a daughter-in-law for her, but she knew very well what kind of character this guy had. To be honest, she didn't like him very much. Apart from this, Yu Jing was still good. Teacher, Master. Yu Jing came back to her senses and her face suddenly turned red. She was a nymphomaniac again. The master would definitely hate her for being a nymphomaniac to her sons. Yu Jing, let me send you to the spirit world. This place is not suitable for your cultivation, Yuan said lightly. She had no such plan originally, and now she cannot be left in the space. This is where she and Mujukan usually live, and this guy is so virtuous that it is really hard to like him. There are still those 10,000 Buddhas in the space. She actually wants the giant Buddha of 10,000 Buddhas to live in space. If this guy sees him and drives people away, she will die. Wanfo has done it, and in any industry, she is standing at the peak. She is stupid and only leaves a idiot 25 in the space. Of course, becoming her apprentice will give her the security she needs. Master, respect me. Don't worry, you don't have to worry about safety. Yuan interrupted her and went to the God realm to find a divine beast for her. Seeing that she had said this, Yu Jing had no choice but to agree. Immediately, Yuan got her a divine beast from the God realm, asked her to make a contract, and then sent her to the spiritual world of Baisha realm. She would not be stupid enough to leave her here. Sure enough, as soon as she sent Yu Jing away, the man from the God realm noticed it. He frowned slightly, then returned to normal and continued to meditate. After sending Yu Jing away, Yuan returned to the Dongsha realm. It happened that Mujukan's thunder tribulation had been over. After accepting him into the space to consolidate his cultivation, she watched the two treasures through the realm gate in the space as they practiced their spiritual path. Liangbao did follow the path she said, so she returned to the practice room to retreat. At their current level of cultivation, there is no point in practicing or anything like that. The key is to retreat more and comprehend more. This is why there are not many powerful monks walking around in the world of immortality. This time in retreat, Yuan decided to study the laws carefully. During her promotion, she touched the laws of the stars. I have never touched it before and am very unfamiliar with the laws of the stars. But when she touched it this time, she seemed to see a vast starry sky. Although it was short-lived, the startling glimpse still made her remember it, and also let her know that the starry sky in this world was like that. With a large energy planet at the center, there are all kinds of shining planets around it, rotating slowly and regularly around it. It is the same as on the Earth and the stars revolve around the sun. And that energy ball must be the energy ball that Wan Buddha mentioned, which made Yuan feel a flash of joy in her heart. It was just a hint of joy. It was difficult to find the energy ball in the middle. The starry sky was very big. Yuan didn't know where the five-axis realm was located in the starry sky. At that time, I wanted to take a closer look, but the scene was too short. So she thought that if she integrated the law of stars, it would be possible to find it. The power of the stars is the strongest on that energy ball, not only the power of the stars, but also other powers. She is only sensitive to the laws of the stars and is very friendly to them, so she can follow the laws of the stars to find her way there. This is the purpose of her retreat this time. It just so happens that if she can find the energy planet, there is hope of finding the pure world green lotus. In addition, it is possible to find a suitable planet for cultivation in the Baishu world. Thinking of this question, Yuan was wondering, is it possible that people in Tianya and the Dongsha realm want people from this star body just to understand the laws of the stars and then find the energy planet? Of course, this is just her guess. She will not know the details until she meets Ming Ao. She believes that she will know that day. With the divine eye, Yuan does not have to leave the space at all, she can follow the divine eye out with her consciousness. Yuan sat down and looked up at the sky. When her divine eye saw the sky through the space, her consciousness followed. Keeping upward, as if passing through layers of barriers. It's a pity that the spiritual consciousness can't penetrate it when it reaches this point. Only God I can continue. When she passed through the layers of barriers, her vision became a little blurred and she stopped. At this time, she could vaguely see the scene she saw when she was promoted. Far away from her, they were all like blinking planets, densely packed and multi-dimensional. Countless. Yuan understood that this was the starry sky. Being able to truly see such a vast starry sky made Yuan's heart skip a few beats. She could really see this place coming with her divine eyes, which surprised her. Unexpectedly, as his cultivation level advanced, his divine eyes would also be promoted, and he could penetrate the barrier of the fairy world and reach the starry sky. This is extraordinary. However, this has a lot to do with the strength of her soul. Once her divine eye reached this point, she could not go any further, so she looked at the net-like law lines around her. In her eyes, among the colorful and slow-moving regular lines, there are colorful hair-like lines that are very close to her, and she likes them more than the monochromatic lines. This is the law line of the power of the stars. It's a pity that she can't refine those laws here, her spiritual consciousness can't penetrate the fairy world to the starry sky, and her divine eyes seem to be unable to stand it at the moment. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 688. Chapter 688, The Power of the Refining Law. She immediately retreated to the fairy world. After her divine eyes recovered, she could see out and look for the laws of stars in the sky above the fairy world. Among the countless dense network lines, when Yuan found the star law line, her consciousness slowly moved towards it. When the divine consciousness locks on a line of law and wraps it up, suddenly, the law line turns into colorful light spots and merges into the spiritual consciousness. At the same time, Yuan immediately started refining the star soul art. When the first ray of star law was refined, Yuan didn't feel anything yet. One strand was not enough, so Yuan practiced the second and third strands. Finally, I don't know how long it took, and Yuan didn't know how much she had refined. At this moment, she felt like a part and a force in the vast starry sky. This feeling is so amazing. Yuan's eyes and soul were exhausted after refining for so long at a time. She immediately withdrew her eyes and consciousness. When her consciousness moved again, she went to the bedroom of the small palace and fell asleep. This sleep lasted for a month. When she woke up, she was lying on the bed, and her consciousness was checking her soul. On the soul, the power of laws that can only be seen with the divine eye is spread over the soul like a net. Just speak as usual without looking at it. Other than this, the biggest change is that her single thought can blast through the sky. This does not mean that she can really blast through, but that she has the power of law, and her strength has become stronger, and she can stir up the wind and clouds. The law of the stars is simply a representation of power. But to really use it in immortal arts, it still needs to be integrated. If a person who cultivates immortality integrates the power of laws into spells to fight, then the spells used by such monks will be at least twice or even several times more powerful than those of monks of the same level. Fighting or something, what else are you worried about? The so-called power of law is the basic force in the construction of the world and the starry sky. It is the source and cornerstone of all power. It cannot be seen or touched, but it actually exists everywhere in the world and starry sky. Without the power of law, perhaps the world would not exist. Although the power of law is everywhere, not every monk can realize or touch it. It is useless to understand, touch and refine it but not to use it. Just like you recognize the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, but you don't know how to solve the problem. Yuan is now at the stage of recognition. So, the next step is to apply the power of law to magic. But this is a long process, and it does not mean that you can succeed overnight. You need to understand, explore, and integrate it yourself. This is also the reason why she could see the power of law in the past but could not refine it. She doesn't often fight with others, and she hasn't had a glimpse of the starry sky. It's different now. Now that she's had a glimpse of the starry sky, the power of this law must be integrated. Not to increase her power, but because she also wants to pry into the secrets of this starry sky and this universe. Perhaps she can really find the civilization of cultivating immortals that exists outside the five-axis realm, and she also wants to see it. There are also tasks assigned to her by her father. Yuan got up and came out, and saw Mujukin sitting alone under the Enlightenment tea in a daze. Yuan frowned. Ever since he was on the road to refining his mind, Mujukin had always been in a daze and felt strange. Is it really about his parents? Yuan thinks this situation may not be possible. What are you doing? Yuan walked over and sat on Mujukin's lap, wrapping her arms around his neck and asking. Waner is out of seclusion, Mujukin asked him to take care of her. Yuan was not angry, and the fact that Mujukin refused to say anything had nothing to do with her, but with himself. She had an idea. Isn't there a divine monk in the space? Let him enlighten him and see what's wrong with this guy. With a flash of consciousness, she sent a message to Wan Buddha. Wan Buddha opened his eyes and glanced at the two of them, twitched the corner of his mouth, and then appeared in front of them in a flash. Divine monk Yuan immediately got off Mujukin and sat on the chair. This guy is so naughty that he won't come out from the gate. Why do you have time to invite this poor monk to tea today? Well, don't I have something to ask you about? Yuan smiled slyly at him and immediately started making tea. Oh, it's so rare that you need to ask a poor monk about something. Wanfo glanced at Mujukin, who was worried, and immediately understood what Yuan meant by calling him out. He asked Mujukin again, is there something that Mujukin can't think about? Do you want me to clear up my doubts together? Mujukin seemed to have just come back to his senses from his deep thoughts. After hearing Wanfo's question, he knew that Waner, a ghostly spirit, had noticed something. He was not worried about Waner knowing that if this matter was true, he would hide it. Can't live. Then he nodded and said, Holy monk, I do have something I want to confirm. The fragments he saw in the illusion should not be fake. He glanced at 10,000 Buddhas, who nodded and said, I wish you the best, please tell me. Donor Yu is also here. Mujukan looked at Yuan and said, Wan'er, I haven't figured this out either, so don't blame your husband. Yuan glared at him, and then she said that this guy had something wrong, then tell me what it is. Mujukan nodded and said, does the divine monk know about the 5-axis realm? 10,000 Buddhas nodded. Mujukan, in ancient times, was there a war in the 5-axis realm between gods and beasts? 10,000 Buddhas nodded again. Mujukan, this time on the road to refining the heart, I saw a few fragments. In ancient times, during the Great War, the Suzaku clan in the Nansha realm was exterminated, and a curse was placed on them. The Suzaku clan could never return to the god realm. And I think I am the reincarnation of the young patriarch of the Suzaku clan, so if I am, I will not be able to ascend in any of the 5 realms. Moreover, when I am promoted to the immortal emperor this time, the thunder calamity will be the god of destruction. Ray seems to be a warning to me. Amitabha, I admire the benefactor, I never expected that you are a descendant of the Suzaku clan. This is indeed a thing, and only the Suzaku clan is banned. Wanfo remembered that the 5 realms were interconnected at that time, that is, that during the war, the 5 realms lost contact. Only the gods in ancient times knew about this, and only those who participated in the war knew about it. The 10,000 Buddhist temple did not exist at that time, but whoever he was, he would definitely be able to get this information. Yuan opened her mouth. It turned out that this was what Mujukan had been thinking about. She glanced at Mujukan and said, You're so worried. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Let's find a solution together. This starry sky is so big that it's beyond the imagination. In your imagination, there will always be other civilizations cultivating immortals, and it's still too early for you to ascend, so worry about it. Donor Yu knows that there are other civilizations cultivating immortals. Wan Fo was a little surprised. Yuan Ajiao, of course, when I understood the power of the law this time, I saw the tip of the iceberg in the vast starry sky. Also, I called you out to ask you about the use of the power of the law. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 689. Chapter 689. Haha, the donor is smart. The donor is really a genius. I have a jade slip here. The donor can take a look. As he spoke, his consciousness moved and a jade slip floated out and fell into Yuan's hand. Yuan felt happy that this thing really existed. She stood up and bowed to 10,000 Buddhas. Thank you so much, the holy monk. Amitabha, you are welcome. Donor 10,000 Buddhas returned the Buddha's name. Yuan smiled and reached out to pat Mujukan's shoulder. With this, we can understand the laws. In addition, we can also understand the laws of space. Maybe we can find another civilization that cultivates immortals. If that doesn't work, let's go to Tiandao sect. Just figure things out and solve the curse. Nothing is difficult in the world, only those who are willing to do so. Yuan guessed that there is a high probability that the Tiandao sect's handiwork is in it. Mujukan nodded. His mentality was still not strong enough and open-minded. According to Wanner's point of view, it's not that he has no vitality, but that he has lost his appearance. In fact, he was frightened. If his life only stayed in the fairy world, how could he live forever with his wife and sons? Amitabha, I admire the donor. What the donor said is very reasonable. It only prohibits ascending to the divine realm, but it does not say that the donor is not allowed to go to the divine realm. In other words, the donor can move in the divine realm before becoming a god. Wanfo added that when he heard Yuan talking about Tiandao sect, his calculations started to rattle. The meaning is very obvious, that is, you can cause trouble in the god realm. To put it bluntly, he went to find out about Tiandao section. He wanted to watch a show. Of course, he doesn't know what happened between Yuan and Tiandaozong, otherwise this guy would directly instigate it, so he wouldn't speak so implicitly. However, you can ask the four spirits in the temple about this matter. If one of them is involved in casting the curse, it will be solved. Anyway, he is most willing to help with things that are not good for Tiandao sect. Yuan and Mujukan are both very smart people, and they can't understand Wanfo's meaning. However, before going, Yuan wanted to talk to the great monk. Yuan saw that Mujukan was absent-minded. She made a copy of the jade slip given by Wan Buddha and handed it to him. Go and have a look first. I will come to you later. Mujukan nodded and took it away. What did the donor want to say to the poor monk when he sent the benefactor away? Wan Fo asked as he took a sip of tea. Yuan glanced at the smiling monk. This monk was so good looking that she couldn't help but look at him more every time. She said quietly, the divine monk encouraged us to go to Tiandao section. Does the divine monk want to take revenge? But, the poor monk always said that the donor is smart, and it's true, Wan Buddha said with a smile. Does the holy monk know who the current leader of Tiandao sect is? Wanfo shook his head, he really didn't know. Having been under the ruins of 10,000 Buddha's temple for too long, the sect leader must have changed. Yuan added, now the leader of Tiandao sect is Ming Ao. Ming Ao, is that old man Ming Chi's son or grandson? Wan Fo asked. Yuan looked at Wan Buddha with a faint smile, I don't know, I only know that he is Ming Ao, my mother's father. As soon as Yuan finished speaking, Wan Fo immediately changed his face and looked at Yuan with a dark expression. Yuan waved her hand towards him and said, there is no need for the holy monk to be angry. If we are really opposites, do you think your 10,000 Buddha's temple can still be safe and sound in my space? To tell you the truth, I am an astral body. In order to get my astral body, Ming Ao, and we have already fallen out with him. Moreover, he wants my astral body to be given to his great disciple, the current Lord God Tianya. For this, I have already given my life once. My father has also been imprisoned by Tianya for 100,000 years, and my mother has also been imprisoned. In short, we have sworn hatred with their master and disciple. But, 10,000 Buddhas lowered their eyes, and then sighed deeply, that's it? Although the Tiandao sect has a good name, it seems to be doing justice for heaven, but in fact it is not the case. The Wanfo temple built by the poor monks at that time was indeed aimed at the Tiandao section. Heaven and earth are unkind and regard all things as stupid dogs. What Tiandao sect has done has already exceeded the principles of benevolence. They are not qualified to stand at the highest point in the divine world. Yuan shook his head. This great monk was still too idealistic. In a world where the strong are respected, I don't care whether the ruler is benevolent or not. As long as it affects me or is detrimental to me, I don't mind giving back. As a ruler, without certain means, he will not rule for long. As the main god, Tianya is not a heinous person to the gods. He has not affected the interests of the gods, nor has he done anything major to betray his relatives, so it does not matter whether he is benevolent or not. Hands on to become the Lord God again, it's actually pretty much the same. No superior person is so pure. But that person wants her life, then she will not let others slaughter her, she will fight back. As for 10,000 Buddhas, his original intention is to provoke, and the final result will definitely be whoever wins the fight will be the winner. But, the benefactor is generous. 10,000 Buddhas are a little ashamed of themselves. People who practice Buddhism should have 6 pure roots. He couldn't do it. In the end, he was exterminated. It can only be said that his strength is not as good as others, and he brought it on himself. 10,000 Buddhas laugh at themselves in their hearts. They should practice Taoism instead of practicing Buddhism. The incident has passed, and I have no regrets about taking the medicine. This revenge still needs to be avenged. You should also avenge those disciples who died, because they died because of him, and Buddhism talks about cause and effect. However, the fact that this benefactor had such a connection with Tian Dao sect really surprised him, and there would be no trouble when he cooperated with this little fox in the future. It's not that I am open-minded, I should say that I understand the rules of the world of immortality they have cultivated all the way up from the lowest level. They don't recognize the reality clearly and think that they are awesome. Then they will die and be reborn many times. Haha, the donor is smart, but it's a pity that he met him too late, otherwise. Stop, I'm not interested in practicing Buddhism. I have 6 impure roots and cannot be a non-Yuan. Immediately interrupted Wanfo's words. Wanfo couldn't help but laugh. He hadn't finished speaking yet, but he pursed his lips and said nothing, so she might have mistakenly thought that he was kidnapping her to become his disciple. Haha, from now on the Shangtian Dao sect will call Shangpoor monk. Wanfo returned to the topic. That's good, and with the help of the holy monk, things should go smoothly. Then we have agreed. Now I have to go to retreat. Please help me, the holy monk. After Yuan nodded, her consciousness moved to Mujukan's side. Wanfo watched her go, shook his head, smiled, and entered the 10,000 Buddhist temple. In a Buddhist hall of 10,000 Buddhist temple, 4 illusory shadows floated inside. Suddenly 10,000 Buddhas arrived. The 4 souls were shocked when they saw the 10,000 Buddhas who were already in reality. You bald donkey, why don't you let us all go? One of the spirits shouted. Their spirits could no longer be restored by divine power, and they had to disappear from this world. 10,000 Buddhas, Amitabha, the donor is still not calm enough here and is still so impulsive. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 690. Chapter 690 Fusion. He locked one of the 4 souls and said, Donor Yuan Cheng, the poor monk has something to ask the benefactor. If the benefactor knows and is willing to tell the truth, the poor monk can let the benefactor go out. The soul of Yuan Cheng was called, and after a long while he said, Excuse me, holy monk. 10,000 Buddhas sat down in the lotus position, and he pronounced the name of the Buddha. Does the donor know that the Suzaku clan in Nansha realm has been cursed? The Suzaku clan, did the sacred monk meet the Suzaku clan? Yuan Cheng was surprised. It seems that the donor knows. Humph. We all know it. The spirit that was the first to scold 10,000 Buddhas snorted. They also participated in the war back then. The 4 ancient beasts were so awesome that they had to compete with the human race in everything. If they are immortal, should they be kept for the new year? Yuan Cheng asked 10,000 Buddhas, what does the holy monk want to know? 10,000 Buddhas, the poor monk just wants to ask about the curse. Is there any solution? How to solve it? Yuan Cheng, sure enough, the sacred monk met the descendants of the Suzaku clan. We did not cast this curse. We do not have the strength. But we can tell the sacred monk that the person who cast this curse was the ancestor of the Tiandao section. As for the explanation, please forgive us. I don't know. Thank you very much. The poor monk kept his word. It's just that it's inconvenient now. When it's convenient, the poor monk will let the donor go. After Wan Buddha finished speaking, he walked out of the temple. Yuan Cheng sighed and couldn't get out. He hadn't been that eager for so many years. Wanfo recorded the conversation he had just had with Yuan Cheng, sealed it in a note jade, and placed it on the table under the enlightenment tea. Yuan is currently nestling in Mujukan's arms. This guy is very thoughtful, so she has to accompany him. Suddenly she saw a jade slip left by 10,000 Buddhas. Her consciousness moved, and the jade slip appeared in her hand. She took a look at it with her consciousness, and then gave it to Mujukan. Mujukan rubbed the top of her hair a few times and took the jade slip and looked at it. "It's Tiendeo sect again," Mujukan said quietly, but his hands were squeezed tightly. "Well, that's right, let's settle the old and new accounts together," Yuan nodded. "Wan'er, I have decided to retreat to understand the laws of space from today on, and put down my cultivation for the time being. In this way, I will not be able to become a even if it takes 1,000,000 years. During this period, Wan'er might as well speed up my cultivation, so as to ascend to the divine world as soon as possible and become a true god. People, and then improve their cultivation." Mujukan feels that this is the best way for now. He will not ascend due to his improvement in cultivation, so he doesn't need to worry about the spell for the time being. In addition, after Wan'er ascended to the god realm, the distance between her and the bird people in the god realm was narrowed again. With Wan'er's methods, those bird people could not be favored by her at all. Instead of letting Wan'er worry with him, it would be better for him to maintain the status quo, which would actually reduce the pressure on Wan'er. "That's okay," Yuan nodded. In this case, she would have enough time to become stronger, and then she could settle the accounts with the monster, ghost, and snake god, and then she could rest assured to go find those energy and other immortal civilizations. Otherwise, she would really be too busy if things were all packed together. The matter has been decided, the two of them are no longer entangled, and their mood is naturally better. A few days later, Yuan returned to the training room and glanced at Mujukan when she left. "Her current cultivation level is not suitable for promotion, so let's take a look at the jade slip given to her by Wan Buddha." After sitting down, she naturally finished some regular practice before taking out the jade slip and looking at it. An hour later, Yuan was thinking about what the jade slips of 10,000 Buddhas said about how to incorporate the power of law into the technique. This requires a fusion. During the fusion process, it is necessary to synchronize the pinching skills in the hand with the power of the law released by the soul. When the power of the law reaches the hand, it is integrated with the already formed spell, and then send out spells. Simple to say, but very difficult to operate. The key is integration. There is no fixed method for this. How to integrate it depends on your specific operation. But the general direction is there, and she needs to try it out herself. Yuan put down the jade slip and adjusted her condition. She is a star and can use spells with the power of stars. Starju unlocked an immortal technique for her, the star transformation, just right. Yuan looked at the stars carefully again. After that, she held the cumbersome Ju in her hand, and her consciousness sent the power of the law to her fingers along the meridians. Boom! When a ball of three-color light flew out from your finger, the law of the stars had not yet arrived. Yuan scratched his head, it was indeed not that easy. So she came again. After the sound of boom, the power of law still slowed down. Yuan continued. After 100 times, her physical strength and star power were exhausted, and she failed even once. She once again took the jade slip given to her by 10,000 Buddhas to meditate on it. It was based on what it said on the jade slip. How could it not work? It is impossible for the great monk to deceive her, because his method is wrong. The power of the stars is always a beat too slow. Yuan wants to not send the power of the law first, and then cast the spell, but can it be integrated into it when the spell is cast? Yuan first restored the power of the stars in her body to its peak state, and then operated as she wanted. So when the power of law reached the tips of her two fingers, she started to pinch again. While pinching, the power of law was brought out. With the gesture, Yuan saw the power of law forming a net-like ball shape. At the moment when the decision was made, a three-color light ball was instantly formed. At this time, a miracle occurred. The three-color light ball immediately wrapped the net-shaped ball, and the net-shaped ball instantly merged with the three-color light ball. Yuan felt happy and immediately waved the ball of light. Boom! With a loud noise, the three-color ball of light exploded with terrifying power, and was 3 times more powerful than the ball of light she had cast before. Yuan's eyes widened. Is it that simple? Oh my god, Yuan had to admire herself, she was indeed a genius. This requires the hand and the soul to be in harmony. It cannot be fast or slow, but it must be at the same time. At the same time, did this great monk really lie to her? Yuan was stunned for a few breaths, and then tried her hand again. Sure enough, she succeeded. There are 2 types of star transformation, one is gong and one is defense. She has used both of them with great success. In fact, it is not as difficult as everyone said, and everyone has entered into the misunderstanding of that difficulty. First input the power of the law. When the hand battle is started, the power of the law will naturally be brought out. When the hand battle is completed, the power of the magic and the law will be brought out. Formed at the same time. Since they are formed from the same type of hand, they naturally fit together and do not need to be artificially fused. They merge by themselves. A month later, Yuanqi Shiren came out of seclusion, came to the Enlightenment Tea, and invited 10,000 Buddhas out. 10,000 Buddhas clasped their hands together. What advice does the donor have? Yuan waved her hand. Don't dare, holy monk, is there any problem with your method of integrating the power of law? No, it took the poor monk several years to realize this. Why, is there any problem? Wanfo was confused. Okay, I have a method here, the holy monk might as well take a look. End of this chapter.